Tonight's artists were exploring an area of musical interaction that relied on intuition, taste, and a high level of musicianship to pull off in a way that suggested a floating three-way conversation, emancipating jazz rhythm from the hard driving, straight ahead style than prevalent in jazz. Sunday Night is a significant album for two reasons. The first was the emergence of an original voice in jazz, and the second was a fresh approach to jazz rhythm. Tonight, we are talking about none other than the Bill Evans Trio, Sunday at the Village Vanguard, recorded 25th of June, 1961. It's got Bill Evans on the piano, Scott LaFaro on bass, and Paul Motian on the drums. It was on the Riverside label and was released on LP and CD. So stay tuned for a great discussion on the Bill Evans Trio.
Cue the music. You know, we prepared last week not to see you, old man, so it is more than a delight to have you on this week. We'll see what happens next week, and we've already by now posted your weekly update, so I can't wait to get a recap on your week in music here in a little bit. But, man, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's go.
Album. I do want to note that out of these recordings from those sessions were actually 3 albums. This is the most highlighted of music due to demand of the time. And we'll talk about that. I'm sure the slideshow covers this as well, of why they would select these for Sunday Night Live at the Village Vanguard. And I got to be honest, this week I listened to it like 5 times, and I've listened.
I did that today.
Today, twice I went through the complete recordings of the Village Vanguard. So I listened to the whole recordings of all sets from that night or from that weekend. So I love Bill. I love Bill.
Yeah.
So we didn't even get into the discussion beforehand like we normally would have. I got my audio clip picked. What did you want to hear?
Dad, why don't you go first?
Okay. I like Solar. I think that's the last track. And play it from the beginning. I think it's a 6-minute track. Is that too long?
For you, no. But for the show, yes.
Okay.
You're funny.
Let's do at least a minute.
Yeah. Yes. Do at least a minute. Where do you want to start at? Oh, at the beginning.
At the beginning.
It's a very beginning. A very good place to start. Do, re, mi.
All right, then that is it. I would have kept going. My bad. My bad. I would have just kept on going.
I know, right? You feel that way with this whole album. One of the reasons I picked this track was because it really brings out the blending of these 3 artists. And there's no superstar here because they're playing their instrument and it comes forward, actually, comes through as Bill is laying down the piano track and the bass player and the drummer Yeah, they're just working together in such a beautiful rhythmic way. And so
I like the way that you put that. That there's not one superstar. They're all three shining bright in their own
Yeah.
area.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I really do too. That was, yeah, great. Great
And
clip.
one point about Solar is that Miles wrote that tune. I was going to ask you, Drew, did Miles ever? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but did Miles ever record Solar? I don't think he did. I think he just wrote it and then handed it to Bill and said, "Here you go."
I'm almost certain that he did.
I didn't get a chance this week to go in depth on Solar, but if Miles does it, I'd like to hear his version as well. I'd like to hear the original and then how Bill Evans interprets Solar.
It was on Walkin'.
Okay, all
Miles
right.
Davis All Stars with J.J. Johnson, Lucky Thompson, Horace Silver, Percy Heath, and Kenny Clark. Miles Davis All Stars got one of them when he did it. It was an RVG.
Oh, with Horace Silver
Yeah.
on piano. Oh wow, those are big shoes. Which version was first? Do you know?
Between
Bill Evans and Miles's. Bill was in '61 at the Village.
that would have been earlier.
Miles would have been earlier.
On that date, because when I first brought it up,
Sorry, Dad. I just love your clips so much. I want to go into a little more depth because
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're all about, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, studying.
Walkin' was done earlier than that, but I don't remember when.
Okay. All right. And again, I don't mean to put you on the spot. That's not what I'm trying to do. I just
1954, Miles Davis, Solar. So I want to play a little bit of that just as representation of Miles. Here we go. It's the Harmon Mute. I mean, you immediately know it's Miles. This particular one is on the Complete Prestige recordings, and it was listed as Miles Davis Quintet. So that's where that one came from.
You know, it's funny because as much as we rabbit hole and learn and dig, it's those little nuggets right there that I wish I would have asked myself earlier in the week so that I could have gone back and listened to the original version from Miles so that I would have known the tune so that I can understand what Bill is doing at the Village Vanguard. So thank you for playing that.
A lot of those clips from the Village Vanguard on the complete set as well, which I really dug most into this week. You hear them. They're tunes that are standards. They've been done, but they've done it with a fresh look. So it was kind of groundbreaking for this trio to play so beautifully together, first of all, but taking some of those standards and remixing them was just really brilliant.
Unlike the Plug Nickel, where it was totally unmixed, broken down, no clue of what song.
Yeah.
At least at Village Vanguard, you've got an semblance of the.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks.
What it was.
Thanks for playing that clip. I appreciate it.
All right, your clip is.
All right, my clip is "My Man's Gone Now," song number 2 on the album. Start me right about 3:15. And play me just 45 seconds, 3:15 to 4 minutes. My clip's a little, it highlights somebody, but there's a reason. So,
All right, I'm sure there is.
"My Man's Gone Now" was originally written by George Gershwin.
Here we go.
Here we go.
forgot where we started.
You can kill it anytime.
I got lost.
It's funny because I picture myself sitting at the club room listening to jazz, and the noises that you hear on the album would be the same noises if you were sitting listening live.
Yeah.
We've heard great studio albums. We have, and I haven't said this in a long time, but if I have my choice between a studio album or a live album, I'm going to choose the live album because they have to be on point every single note, the whole time. They have to be on.
Mm-hmm.
There's no stopping and starting and recut, and we'll dub it over on this take, and they have to be on point the whole time. Now, I highlighted it because it's LaFaro on bass. I normally I would not highlight a bass solo. Bass solos are not one of my favorite jazz solos to listen to. And Dad's clip highlighted how they all three played together. They're still all three playing together. Scott's just a little louder. His conversation is coming through just a little bit louder, not to overtake or overpower. And I don't even think the other two back off. He just steps it up, and it is so gorgeous. He's got such an impeccable sense of timing, an impeccable sense of rhythm. And I don't know. I just that's my take on the clip. What do you think?
I really like that clip because, like you say, they're all three of them are there. One is a little bit more out there, but not. Again, not overpowering, not trying to steal the show, not because they're all playing their little areas, their pieces. And again, I like the word blending. They're blending the rhythm, they're blending the style, they're blending the music. Yeah.
And I'm not discounting the bass in jazz. You can't do that. But for me to pick out a bass solo, it's not going to happen, And we're talking about Bill Evans' trio. We're not just talking about Bill Evans, so you can't highlight him all night with his clips. But man, what the interaction between the three of them is just amazing. It's just gorgeous to me.
Yeah, it is. So I wanted to pick, I appreciate the fact that you two both have talked about Scott LaFaro, which is interesting because I'm going to go to all of you. I'm looking for which take it is. I think this is actually take 2. I'm going to start about 4 minutes and 42 seconds or 40 seconds in because it's Scott. And it's a different sound than what we've heard up until now, where he just owns it. I'm going to give him the spotlight, and I'm sure that here in a moment we'll talk about that why. I'm going to go ahead and shut it down there. But, so far the other clips have been a little more mellow where they blend extremely, extremely well. But in this particular track, he does something that he's really, he's known for it. Had played in his short time with a lot of amazing people. So he blends with Bill so smoothly, but in this particular case, they just push him out front and say, have at it. That's the important thing.
Bill's not even playing during that.
No. Not at all, which is even better. I love the fact of this. Now, the hard part about it is why Sunday Live at the Village Vanguard got the tracks that it did. 11 days after this recording, Scott LaFaro passes away in a car crash. His life ended early, and they decided at that moment that they needed to get an album out. So you may actually see this listed as Sunday Live at the Village Vanguard, featuring Scott LaFaro, because they chose the music that he played most on or best on, or that highlighted his technique the most. So I think it was really nice of us to highlight the pure brilliance, if you will, of Scott LaFaro on the bass. So yeah.
Those are 3 amazing clips, but I will tell you the whole album is simply amazing. And if you'd like what we've played for clips, then please go listen to the full album.
You're gonna enjoy every moment of the full album.
Yeah, for sure. Now's a great time for a commercial. We are using the JazzWise magazine Top 100 Albums That Shook the World. The list is from 2022 as our journey into jazz. Drew and I and Dad, none of us had listened to jazz much before we started our journey, counting down the top 100 albums from 100. This week we are on number 5, the Bill Evans Trio. So we have 95 episodes out. We've got 95 weeks of listening to jazz. And actually Drew and I have more than that because we started before
10 months.
Yeah, about 10 months before we started recording the YouTube channel. So if you haven't gotten your copy of JazzWise Magazine's Top 100 Albums, please head out to the website, get your copy. We are not sponsored by them at all. We don't get paid for saying JazzWise, just our little commercial in the middle of our episode. So just to let you know how we got started in our journey.
So let's get into some slideshow here.
Oh, all right. You know, I've been saying it for 95 weeks now, and I'm going to continue to say it for the next 5 weeks at least. Whatever you do, do it to jazz. You're going to hear coming up in just a few minutes in our week in music. This is actually what we do. Listen to whatever we do, we're doing to jazz. So, of course, this week, we've said it a couple of times already. We're talking about the Bill Evans Trio, Sunday at the Village Vanguard from 1961. I went ahead and put an album cover, a picture of the album cover on there. I asked myself while I was building the slideshow, I wonder if there's a meaning to the 1 and the 3 of his finger placement. His right hand's got a 1 pointer finger out, and his left hand's got his thumb, pointer finger, and middle finger out. I wonder if there's any reference why he would hold his hands that way. Maybe our listeners have an idea. Yep.
Yeah, somebody tell us what that's all about. I know it wasn't no OG gang sign. Or maybe he's left-handed and he's pretending he's holding a cigarette with the left hand. I got one hand in my pocket and another is holding the cigarette.
Dad, you were going to say something.
No, but I was. I'm sorry. It's interesting that you picked that up. And I really would anticipate that some of our listeners would respond to their take on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it was just a question I asked myself as I was building the slideshow. I wonder if there's a meaning behind it. But anyways, I like the artwork cover. You know, it's plain black and white. It's a picture of Bill. I'm surprised they didn't have a picture of the trio, you know, with all 3 of them. But I understand. I mean, I do. It's okay. I like the art cover. I do. All right, so let's move on to the next slide, the jazz style for the day. This style has nothing to do with Bill Evans Trio, the album that we're talking about. We're just going in kind of an alphabetical order from the wiki page. This week, Kansas City Jazz. Kansas City Jazz is a style of jazz that developed in Kansas City and the surrounding Kansas City metropolitan area during the 1930s. Now, I looked up some of the relevant artists in Kansas City jazz. Bud Powell, of course, came to mind. Art Tatum came to mind, and there was several others that could have made the list for Kansas City jazz musicians. So
Now
you know,
you got to remember, 30s big band swinging air.
yep,
Kansas City was also the home of some of the major throwdowns between some of those big bands.
Duke was pretty much at the top of the list for Kansas City.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that fact because I remember reading about that in the history. There were showdowns, all nighters of bands competing for who's got the best sound style, who's got the most tired group of people, and they would just throw down all night long.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Cool.
I just found it interesting that, Kansas City Jazz. So
Is it still got jazz in it? Because Kansas City ain't got good barbecue either. Does it have good jazz?
oh, now wait a minute. Now hold on a second. Oh, okay. All right. So well, Texas first, and then Memphis, and then Kansas City.
Yeah,
Kansas City
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay, all right. They're third. They're not terrible with barbecue.
That's funny.
All right, next slide. Where you can get it. The Bill Evans Trio can be found on all the major streaming platforms. We at the Unconnoisseur would prefer that you go to your local record store and buy a brand new copy of Live at the Village Vanguard, Sunday at the Village Vanguard. I put a quote at the bottom of that slide. This is such a beautiful quote from Bill Evans. Music should enrich the soul. And I'm just going to let it hang there for just a second. Music should enrich the soul. And I'll tell you, from the start of our journey, it has been enriching to my soul. Jazz has been enriching to my soul.
Yeah.
It's gotten through some tough times, through some good times, through some easy times, through some hard times. I don't know. Since we started, I've read so many books and learned so much about jazz, and it's all because of the music, and it's soul enriching for me. So to see that quote from Bill Evans really hit me this week while I was building the slideshow. So
the question would be, and I think we know the answer to that, where does music come from and where does jazz music come from? Except, especially jazz, well, really any kind of music comes from the soul. It comes from the drive, the motivation, call it the spirit within us. Not necessarily, I'm not thinking the Holy Spirit, but it comes from the spirit within us that drives us to want more, to hear more, to strive for better. And so, yeah, I think music does that, and jazz does that.
Yeah.
It enriches us.
Yeah.
Body, soul, and spirit. Emotionally. I mean, think of all those various areas, how when you listen to most jazz, now I'm not saying all of it. Sun Ra, I'm not sure how it enriches my soul.
That didn't come from the soul. That came from Saturn.
That's what it
Help
is.
save your soul.
Yes.
Peter Brotzman came from another
Came from the
place,
soul.
opposite of heaven.
Come on now. Come on.
All right, you're right.
I still haven't gone back to it recently, but come on, give the man some love. It does enrich the soul, and I think that as people begin to play it, especially play it, you've got to find it in your soul. But more importantly, when you're listening to it, and you can feel them. You feel that stride. You feel the groove. I've been referring to dancing like Monk. When I hear music that really hits that, I don't have to think about it. I can just dance to it. Dance like Monk, because I can't dance neither.
Yeah.
So, and y'all see that. I'm sure you've seen the dancing clip by now. So, just so much fun. So it does enrich the soul, but it also sharpens the mind.
Sure.
When you're actively listening, you're actively paying attention to something other than yourself.
I find that that's when my creative juices are flowing the most, is when I'm listening to jazz.
There's a certain person within your family who, when he hears music and he tries to clap to the music, I'm not saying who it is, but it's most of the time he's not there.
That's true.
He's there in body, but
it gets in his soul enough to clap off rhythm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep. Yep.
So not criticizing, just
Oh.
pointing that out.
Oh, that's funny. All right. I made a mistake on this year in history slide. I put 1956 by accident, but the actual facts are from 1961. So I don't know how I missed that while I was editing the slideshow this week, but this year in history is from 1961. This year was the first live presidential news conference from the White House by John F. Kennedy. So up until then, there was no live press conferences. So in 1961 was the very first live press conference from the White House. Also in 61, Barbie's boyfriend, Ken, is introduced to the U.S.
He's
So,
old.
Yeah, he's old. 1961. Alan Shepard becomes the first man in space on Mercury 3, which, that blows me away that it took us, 8 more years to go to the moon, only 8 years after he was the first man in space. So that's pretty dang cool. Alan Shepard in space, 1961. A few jazz albums that came out in 61. Ole Coltrane by John Coltrane. Ornette Coleman's Free Jazz. And Out of the Cool by Gil Evans. And 2 of those albums we have covered. So Free Jazz by Ornette Coleman.
Free Jazz Collective. A double quintet.
Yes, thank you. And Out of the Cool by Gil Evans, of course, was
I was just talking about that album today. That's why it's on my mind.
Oh yeah.
Challenge a young man to go listen to it. He's an audio engineer, and I said, just check out the fact that you got bands battling in either ear.
Yeah.
So I think he'll talk to me tomorrow about it.
Nice. Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah. Also in 61, of course, Scott LaFaro passes away, as well as the trumpeter Booker Little. That just to highlight 2. There was other jazz musicians who passed away in 61. I'm just highlighting 2 of them tonight. Born in 1961 was Enya. Not necessarily a jazz musician, maybe third stream, maybe fusion jazz, maybe. But her name was on the list, so I put it on the slideshow. Enya. Also, the trombone player, Boney James. And of course, my man Wynton Marsalis, born in 1961. Now, on to the timeline.
Slide right into the timeline.
All right. 1929 is when Bill was born. Yeah, it's so hard to put a timeline together just with a snapshot in between.
Yeah.
But I try my best every week. 29, he was born. In 1959, he left Davis's group to start a solo career. 51 through 54 were the 3 years that he spent as an Army bandsman, which I'll wait to talk about on the next slide. And then this album, of course, was recorded and released in 1961. 1980, Bill passes away, making him 51 years old when he passed away.
Matt, again, not to put you on the spot, but do you know what band, the Army band?
I'm going to talk about that on the next slide.
I'm waiting for that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to keep my pie hole shut because I think when you text said, "Oh, I got some nuggets," I'm like, I bet I know what it is.
Yep.
But we'll get to that in about 5.
5 seconds, because we're moving on to the next slide right now. Okay, a few influences. Now, there's a ton of influences that's listed on the page. I just picked a few just to highlight. I'm going to start with number 3. Bud Powell was his number 1 influence. He says that, quote, he's quoted that, and it's right on the wiki page, but Bud Powell was his number 1 influence. When he started piano, it was Mozart, Beethoven, and Schubert were some of his major influences. So, again, I have limited space on the slideshow to highlight his influences, so I just picked the ones that are interesting to me. He does have 52 studio CDs, 27 compilations, and as sideman, just way too many to count. I mean, a list longer than my forearm and probably longer than my whole arm, which is a real long arm. So I didn't even attempt to count the sideman gigs that Bill Evans had played. The genre that's listed for Bill, of course, is jazz. He played modal jazz and then cool jazz. And I don't think Sunday at the Village Vanguard is modal, but it sure is cool. I mean, Mm. Yeah. All right. 6 Degrees with Miles was real easy this week. He played on an album that's going to be coming up in the list that I shall not name just yet, but he did play with
Yeah.
Miles. Yeah, played with Miles. A few facts about Bill Evans. He started on the violin, the flute, and the piccolo. Those were his first instruments. So I just found that funny that, to start on the violin and then switch to the piano, switch to the flute and the piccolo first, realize, this instrument's not for me, and then to pick up the piano. I just found it interesting. That's all.
Yeah.
Yep. Father Earl Hines, Hawkins, and Stan Getz were some of the other influences that were listed. It's not that I couldn't find facts. It's just I wanted to highlight those other influences about more facts for Bill. He did go to college and attend college on a flute scholarship, which again is amazing to me that he started at 6 years old playing the violin, switched to the flute and piccolo, and then started on the piano when he was like, I don't know, 7 or 8. But then to turn right around and go to college on a flute scholarship, who'd have thunk it, right? But music was enriching to his soul, so he didn't care, I don't think, what he played. 1954, he took a sabbatical after his Army service.
Tell me about his Army service, Matt.
There you go. Thank you for leading me into that. He spent 3 years at Fort Sheridan in the 5th Army Band. Now, why is that important to me? Because if you've watched our episodes, you watched our very first episode that we did, I talk about my Army service. I spent 3 years at Fort Sheridan in the Army Band. Now, he was in the 5th Army. When I got to Fort Sheridan, we were the 4th Army Band. I don't know how the bands switch around like that, but they do. But he might have. I'm sure he did some of the same gigs that I did when I was there. I'm sure that they did parades and they did passing reviews, and they. I'm 3 steps away from Miles Davis through Bill Evans.
Yes.
You walked on the same grounds Bill Evans did.
I know.
At Fort Sheridan, Chicago.
Yep. And that post is no longer. They've since closed it, sold the land. But I lit up. I even stopped doing the slideshow just so I could tell Kendra that fact. And she was pretty happy that I shared that with her right then and there.
Well, but I appreciated that because when I read that, I thought, boy, I better do some digging into that even more. He hosted a jazz program on the on camp radio station and performed in the clubs during the time. Yep. He played the piccolo, the flute, and the piano in the band. And by the way, 1993, it was May 3rd, 1993, they officially closed Fort Sheridan in Chicago. Yep. Many of the buildings were sold out. Some of the original structures were refurbished, which is now housing around there. Other buildings were given to the cultural organizations, one of which is the Midwest Young Artists, which is still being maintained today. So some of those barracks, some of the housing that you may have remembered are now being used by young artists in Chicago. So I got excited when I saw that because I'd been there.
Yeah, you've been there. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
What else were you going to say about that, Matt?
I was going to say Fort Sheridan is about 35-minute train ride north of Chicago. So to get on the train and head down downtown Chicago, where I'm sure Bill would go and play on his off time, to some of the jazz clubs down in Chicago, is just a short 30-minute train ride to really literally downtown. So yeah, I don't know. It's just such a cool fact to know that he was there. But he did take a sabbatical after his Army service. He was pretty distraught. I don't know whether he was picked on or criticized. I think it was because he was criticized so highly. His music was criticized so highly that he's like, I'm gonna give up for a year. I just need a break. So he took a good sabbatical between his Army service and coming back into music. Okay, let's move on to a few facts about Sunday at the Village Vanguard. This is listed as one of the best live jazz recordings of all time. And in my notes, I put the recording itself is beautiful, even with the chungas that are talking in the background. Because you hear the plates, you hear the forks, you hear the glass drop on the floor during LaFaro's solo. During my clip, somebody drops a glass on the floor. Even with all that stuff, the recording is an amazing recording to capture all three of them perfectly.
Yeah.
So this is Scott LaFaro's last recording. Like Drew said earlier, 11 days after this recording, he passes away in a car accident. 5 stars across the board from all the major critics, except for Downbeat Magazine, which gave it 4 stars out of 5. So don't know how that happened from Downbeat, but we'll give them a pass because they deserve a pass. So, all right. So let's just start the conversation right off with our ratings. That way we can get into the discussion and why we rated it the way we did.
No doubt about that. I'll start.
Okay.
There is no doubt in my mind that this is one epic album. You know the history of it now. We've talked just briefly through the slideshow and how important this trio was. Evans, LaFaro, and Motion were committed to an idea of 3 equal voices in a particular trio, and they were working together for a singular musical idea. And here it says, without any musician explicitly keeping time. They all just felt it and played it, and you can feel it. I can feel it. Even like you said, even the chungas in the background making all the noise and throwing and rattling things around. There were many times in the last week that I would do this.
Yes.
Who's making that? Is there somebody in the house? Is there
somebody talking to me?
Yeah. So what's going on? Even with that being said, because I was placed at the Village Vanguard listening to this, and oddly enough, the recordings are great. Mm-hmm. I was moved. It matched all the criteria that you guys talk about. I just go by how to make me feel. It made me feel great. Great enough that I didn't deviate much from Bill Evans' trio, period. I gorged on his stuff. The 3 albums that came out of these recordings was Waltz for Debbie, More from the Village Vanguard, and of course this one. And those 3 albums then later got combined in the 80s to be the complete Village Vanguard recordings. So, yeah, if you listen to More from the Vanguard, Waltz for Debbie, and this album, you've caught everything. I gave this album a 10.
Not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Dad, what'd you think?
It met every bit of my criteria, especially the history of it. The setting, I like Matt, I think you've said, and we've talked about before, how a live album really is, it's more pleasing, but it's has to be done just right, or the musicians have to be on and aware of what's happening around them, but what's happening with the other musicians. So that's a big deal for me. The flow, the style. I wrote the word magical down because it feels magical to me. The way they're interacting with each other, and of course, smooth, slow. I'm more inclined for something like this overall, generally speaking. So I had no trouble giving this a 10.
Okay. So I'm the odd man out.
How odd can you be?
Well, it met the criteria for me. The craftsmanship, again, we've talked about the awareness, where the musicians kind of are, the club sounds around you. The creativity is definitely there. The voicings and the 3 bright stars are definitely there. The spirit. I think the one that caught me this week on my score was the emotion. It's not that I didn't like it. I loved it, but I, for some dumb reason, could only go to a 9.5. So it got a 9.5 from me.
I had it written down as a 10.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll take that. I'm changing my score then.
I don't see it. I was going to go to the website and see what it lists there.
First time in Unconnoisseur history, I get to change my score.
Whoa, oh boy,
That's funny.
boy.
That is funny.
I made in my notes in capital letters, big headphone worthy.
Oh.
This is big headphone worthy by all means.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the funny part. Not even the whole way through the album, and it's a 10 for me, is what I put. And then I put a 9.5 as my main score. Huh. Weird. I don't know. Okay. Whether I get.
Oddly enough, it's not even on our website. I haven't updated that yet. So you can slide.
Okay. Good. I'm going to let it slide.
I'm going to let it slide as a 10.
10s across the board because I don't want to be Downbeat Magazine and only give it 4 stars.
No. And that reminds me, you can always find the ratings that we're referring to at theunconnoisseur.com. I'll put the link right above us or on screen. A lot more information on our website, but yes, you can find those ratings.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. All right. So, the 3 equal voices were a big part of our discussion already. I love the fact that again, there's not one superstar or one highlighted more than the other. Paul doesn't really get a drum solo though. There's not really a part where those two kind of even take a 30-second break and just let Paul do his thing on the drums.
No, and you're right. You hear some bass featured. You hear a lot of piano out in front there, but you don't hear motion.
Why
He
not?
is not making a commotion.
Well, I'm not sure how necessary that would have been for the setting they're in, for the music they're playing. I'm not sure you need a drum solo.
I get it because it's a quieter environment. He's not really pounding on the drums. He's using his brushes,
Yep,
tapping the cymbals instead of crashing the cymbals.
yep.
Good point. Good point.
Yep. I'm glad you mentioned brushes because the brushes do stand out in several of the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
As a singular voice. Now, again, this album featured a lot more LaFaro than the overall sets at the Vanguard. Throughout the whole, with 5 sets, right? 3 nights over 5 sets.
2 days.
2 days.
Yeah.
So they pulled at the end here. Bill and Keep News, Orrin Keep News decided we need to pull the best that features LaFaro's masterly performance on bass, as well as Glorious Step and Jade Visions, which were written by LaFaro. So they wanted to pull the best of his because of his passing. That was then released in September of '61. So it was a highlight, really, of LaFaro. But as a singular voice with all 3 of these musicians, it comes through. They are one unit. And I want to read this because I found this last year and we talked about it. This is from Bill Evans. I am thankful that we recorded that day because it was the last time I saw Scott and the last time we would play together. When you evolved a concept of playing, which depends on which depends on the specific personalities of outstanding players, how do you start again when they are gone? Mm-hmm. And Bill Evans took this really hard and didn't play for many months after that, and not even at home would he play. So the loss of Scott LaFaro hit him really hard, which goes back to that sabbatical after his service in the Army too. Some of these things become really personal and really raw. And the passing of the singular voice, Scott LaFaro, took its toll on it. And it explains to me why I love the album. You get to hear the bass playing.
Well, and they play together so much. They hang out so much. They probably practice. They may go out for dinner together after practice, and they become a small family unit. And you lose one of those members, and your heart's broken. Which, when I read that fact that he took another break after LaFaro died, it made sense to me. You gotta grieve. So that's probably what he was doing, and not even touching music until he's done grieving, so that he doesn't put out bad stuff.
Yeah.
So Matt, a question for you then. After 8 years playing in the Army band, you could probably relate to this needing a sabbatical. I mean, he's 3 years up in Fort Sheridan. You were 3 years there, and then beyond that, you were at Fort Campbell with the 101st. So how do you relate to the need for a sabbatical?
I took a 30-year sabbatical on the trumpet after the Army band, not because listen, I loved my time in the service. I loved playing professionally, but when I was done, I just was done. I had achieved what I wanted to achieve. I got to play professionally. I got to do some really cool things, and I guess that for me, that's what I wanted to accomplish, and I was not sad to give it up. Now I have gotten the horn back out for taps for few individuals. I played for some people's weddings after the service. It's not like I completely quit, but I mean, pretty much I did. So yeah,
So
I
the newest challenge is Stolen Moments, Freddie Hubbard solo.
I got most of it. It's just a double high
Most
E.
of it doesn't count.
It's just that double high E that he's got. And of course, then I would have to work the tempo and Sidewinder. Sidewinder's not a tough song, except for the solo part. I can play the head of Sidewinder pretty easy, but yeah, it's fun to get it back out every once in a while and play for a little while, just because I can. But it's not something I choose to pursue.
One other question then. You're going to play a disc recording of Tabs at My Funeral?
No, I did it for Grandpa Rice. I'll do it for you.
Okay, good. Good.
Yep. All right. So what else about the album do you want to talk about? Is there any other?
There's
facts
some that I wanted to highlight here, because it was after our conversation last year at this when we realized that we had seen Scott LaFaro's name for a completely different reason. I had mentioned it earlier. He was in the left side track of Ornette Coleman's Free Jazz, a collective improvisation. So Scott LaFaro was on the Free Jazz album with Ornette Coleman. And I just thought that was so cool to realize that we had already seen him. We'd already known of the name, but to hear a very different style of Scott LaFaro was just really cool. So
That's great.
that's my wrap up note on this.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there are times when we study the album, we breeze over the names, and a week later we forget who's on that album, and then turn right around and hit a different style where he's highlighted more, and boom, he's front and center, and now I won't forget the name.
No.
Ever again. So thanks. Yeah, that's a great tip. Great. Well, that was great discussion on Bill Evans Trio. And, Bill Evans is old school. But, Dad, why don't you go ahead and tell us what's new?
What's new?
Be happy to do that. And I found this young man through my search last week. I was trying to find his sister. His sister's name is Jamie Lee Schultz, and I found Justin Lee Schultz. Justin is like right now, he's like an 18-year-old. When he recorded this album, it's called Just in the Moment. He was 16 years old. And the label is Sanachi album. It was recorded September 1st of 23. Again, the kid was 16 years old. He's South African, and he currently is based in LA. This kid was endorsed by Quincy Jones, endorsed by Harry Connick Jr., and Robert Glasper's voice is on the first track, and he lays it down so smoothly. So every one of these artists has so much good to say, and there's others. If you look into the Wikipedia, there's so many others who are just raving about this kid and his sister. There's 11 tracks on it, and each one just flows so beautifully. I would anticipate that his main instrument is piano, but he was laying down some sax tracks that were just as fine as could be. Now, I'm not saying, like I did last week about new jazz, new music, that likely it could become one of the top 100. I'm not saying that, but I'll tell you what, give him a couple years and some more experience, and he's an up and comer. I think our listeners would really appreciate listening to Justin Lee Schultz. And this is only like his second solo album. And his first one is Groove Kid, G-U-R-V, Groove, G-R-U-V, Groove Kid. And you can listen to that one too, because he has got some special groove going on with his music.
Now,
so I highly recommend it.
I will say that it's not available on iTunes. So the place that I had to listen to just in the moment was YouTube Music. So I had to go to YouTube to listen to it. It's funny because the album, his name is on iTunes. The album didn't show up in iTunes, and Groove Tunes didn't show up either. Otherwise, I would have picked to listen to that as well. You get some great facts about Justin, Dad, and there's just a couple more that I put on the slide. I don't want to overpower or overshadow what you said, but he does have his own website, justinleeglobal.com. I was on that site for a little bit this week. I wanted to check, see if he was going on tour. There's no tour dates listed. But this kid learned to play the piano at the age of 5. And by the age of 6, people were saying that he was playing better than college-age students. So, just a short span of a year, he went from learning the keyboard to mastering the keyboard better than a college student. So it surprises me none that Robert Glasper or Harry Connick Jr. would have, would.
It's funny because you say learn to play at 5, and by age 6 he was playing better than college kids. He's not even a college kid yet, is he?
Right. Yeah, at the age of 6.
No, I mean like currently, he's still a kid.
No, not even now.
Yeah.
No.
He is still, what is he, 18, 19, 20?
Yeah, one other interesting thing, not about him, but his sister, Jamie Lay. She's a drummer, and there's a video out as she's playing for the how do you pronounce the cymbals?
Zildjian.
Yes, the 400th anniversary concert, and she's laying it down like an old time professional drummer.
Wow,
no.
She's good. The two of them together, they're just incredible musicians. So check them out.
Yeah, check it out.
I have to admit, when I started listening to it, I almost thought I was listening to a Robert Glasper album. The opening track of song 1 is almost the same thing as the Robert Glasper Double Booked. It's a voice message that they're replaying, or so it sounds like it. And I'm like, wait a minute, this kid had to have been inspired by Robert. So then I actually did the digging, other than just hit go and listen. So it is a brilliant album.
Yeah.
It really is.
If you all can find an album by his sister, I'd appreciate knowing that, because I'd really like to listen to an album that she's laid out.
We'll do some research. Y'all
Yes,
do some research out there in internet land too. I'm sure somebody knows something about something. Thank you all for that.
We know very little about a whole bunch.
Absolutely. Dad, as always, I'm not sure where you find them, but thank you so much for finding the newest music out there that we need to be listening to, keeping our eyes on. Dad, since you're already warmed up with Old Man New Jazz and talking, tell us what's new in your life.
Okay, this week in music, this week in life has been rather difficult, and I kind of laid that out a little bit.
Yeah.
So the first part of the week, I listened to Bill Evans, and I listened to our new artist, and I was reading and finished reading the book that Lady D gave me on Gene Krupa. And so I listened to some of his music, Gene Krupa's music, Sing, 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 especially, which goes down and go ahead.
That's a Krupa tune?
Yeah, Sing, Sing,
Is this
Sing.
the same King Krupa on Mario Brothers that you got to beat at the end of the video game?
Gene.
Oh, Gene Krupa.
Gene
Not King
Krupa. Yeah. The Master of Drums is the title of that book. And it really was a very interesting read because we're talking about history here. This man started in the 30s. He came over in the 40s, 50s, 60s. He actually, according to the book, he brought rock and roll into existence the way he had not planned on, but his drumming style was the precursor to rock and roll drumming. And of course, jazz, big band, that whole process was everything about Gene Krupa. And I don't know the reason, I'm passing on now, but to another topic, but for some reason, the Ventures came into my head. They were referenced in the book. That's why. The Ventures, remember the Ventures? Wipeout.
Oh, Wipeout.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Walk, Don't Run. Riders in the Sky. And
I know Riders on the Storm.
Riders.
A papa, ooh, ma, pop. Oh, different one. Riders on the
And
storm.
let me tell you this. Do you watch Hawaii Five-0?
Yes.
The music,
Theme music.
Book 'em, Dano.
That makes sense because it's a drum-centric song.
yes. And he the Ventures played the House of the Rising Sun. And so many other great,
Ventures?
yeah, so many other great albums and tracks that he cut down. And then this afternoon, again, I don't know how this came up, but I saw reference to blues.
Booze?
Blues,
Liquor.
yeah, blues, as in Blues Brothers.
Blues Brothers.
And I found a track by Robert Johnson, and the track is called Crossroad.
Yes.
Have you heard it? Have you listened?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been covered many, many, many times by other blues artists. Yeah, that's one of the
Okay.
blues standards. Yeah.
It's early blues. This Robert Johnson was done May of 37, and there's a history to it I'm not going to get into, but I think our listeners would appreciate the fact that this man was one of the premier pioneer blues guitarist. So yeah, Crossroads, check it out when you get a chance.
They
While
actually
you're
did.
sitting there on drugs on Netflix, I think is where the docu entertainment movie of Crossroads is.
Okay.
There's been a couple of those done about Robert Johnson's Crossroads.
Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid, is in one of them. Yeah. So,
Really?
yeah.
Guitar player playing against Steve Vai, right?
Yep.
So basically what you're pointing out is that, yeah, the old man is an unconnoisseur. He's just learning.
No,
Learning-
I'm trying to tell you that while you're sitting there all tweaking out on your drugs because of chemo, you could turn in and turn on some Netflix and watch all kinds. There's a documentary called The Crossroads.
Yep.
There's that movie with Ralph Macchio and Steve Vai, and there's a couple other infotainment kind of movies about the Crossroads.
Okay.
It's a super cool history when you think about
Yeah.
his story in blues.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to reading a book, Jazz for Dummies, The History of Jazz for Dummies. Is there such a book out?
Maybe, but that's not Ted Gioia's book because
That's not for dummies.
That's not.
I'm sure it's not.
I need to send the copy to you, but we'll read it together.
Yeah.
We'll do several pages a week or something, just so we can have something else to dialogue going back.
Yeah.
The sounds like we're going to do some history lessons of the history of jazz, as well as kicking off, 2015 and newer music coming into the end of the top 100. So,
Yep. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Drew, you just gave away a big secret. So,
oh,
for those of you that don't know, we've only got 5 episodes left on the journey that was handed to us through the magazine. And after that, we're going to have to start making up our own journey. And so, what we're doing, the 3 of us, is creating our kind of top 100 list so that we can recommend new music to you that's newer than 2015, which is the newest album in this journey. So, be looking forward to that after we're done with the top 100. So
yes.
So who's next with
Go ahead.
okay, all right. I had a great week. First of all, I binged Bill Evans all week long. I mean, I did the Village Vanguard 3 times through just today because I was in the car quite a bit. Of course, I'm still on my Coltrane rabbit hole. I've got about 30 albums down so far, so I've got about 31 to go before I finish by the end of the year. My goal is by the end of the year. I listen to it one time through. That's it. I give it a quick rating, and I'm keeping track of it. So, yeah, it's really cool. Kendra and I watch a lot of TV. We watch the Wednesday night Chicago shows. This week on Chicago Med, they're getting ready to perform a surgery, a very intense surgery, and one of the doctors looks at the other and says, "Do you like to listen to music while you operate?" And he says, "Sure, I do. What do you have in mind?" And she's like, "We're going to listen to Cannonball Adderley."
Yes.
And so they played a clip of Cannonball Adderley while the surgery got started. Kendra, she got all excited. "I know Cannonball Adderley. You guys covered him in one of your episodes. I know his music." So it was just
That's
a cool highlight of my week to hear jazz mentioned in a mainstream TV show. Of course, this week we did get to see, well, we didn't see Lady D perform. We heard Lady D perform. She is doing the musical Frozen this week with the Fort Wayne Civic Arts Center, the Civic Theater. It's a beautiful performance. Frozen live is amazing. There was a special feature. I won't give anything away, but it might have been a little white falling from the ceiling and covering everyone in snow. So it was a great performance. She's highlighted a lot in that particular show. In the musical, she does not have to play quiet. She can bang like she likes. And it's a great show. The music is phenomenal. The singing, I told Kendra on the way out, that's probably one of the best shows that I've seen in Fort Wayne. The way that the music is done, the harmonies, the lead characters, Anna and Elsa, they're 2 16-year-olds, and I'm telling you what, they knocked it out of the park. If they don't make a life on Broadway, I will be very, very surprised how controlled their vocals were, how poised they were on stage, their acting ability. It was simply amazing. So
Well, they probably spent about 5 years of their life singing those songs, like every little girl did of that time.
probably,
So,
but
to put it out there with the
yeah, with the Art Center,
Yeah.
the Civic Arts Center, not just remembering the lyrics, but the control of their voice, even at that age, it was simply amazing. So love seeing Frozen. Saturday night, we also went to a local club here in town and saw an old time band that we used to follow called the Y Store. They've got 3 or 4 albums out. Basically, they were kind of big in the late 90s, 96, 97, 98. Put out some good music, but they were back playing at one of our bars really close to home. So we went and spent an hour and a half just kind of listening to the Y Store, just for some change of pace from jazz. So it was a great week. Yep, it was a great week.
Good.
I got my car fixed, and of course, what am I listening to while I'm bleeding my brakes on Sunday? I'm listening to jazz, of course.
That fixed the problem then.
It did fix the problem. Yes.
Good,
Yep.
good. I'm glad your
All
car's up and running.
Yep, that's my
My week is pretty much the same as it usually is. School and learn, practice my horn. I've got my schedule kind of set for beginning of December working with the NICA program. So I'll be riding my bike a lot more here in the next couple of months. And we'll see February, March, and April come and go as the races exist. So I've got to email some folks tonight about getting signed up as a coach again, getting my status made to active. So I'm really looking forward to riding with the Ute and having an opportunity to go play out on my bicycle. So that's going to be pretty exciting. And school.
Excuse me. Did you say Ute?
The two Utes.
To what? What was that word?
What word?
To what?
What?
Did you say Utes?
Yeah, two Utes.
What is a Ute?
Oh, excuse me, Your Honor. Two youths.
Yeah, the two Utes.
The two Utes.
What's a Ute?
Where are you from?
That's awesome. So yeah, a lot of moving things, moving and shaking. So another week here and gone. I'm sure I'll have more updates right after I hang up. I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about. But
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the rhythm of this season and look forward to what next season brings. So speaking about what next season brings, can I introduce it?
Yes, please.
Pretty please.
Yes, please.
Because next week we get none other than another Ornette Coleman. And this album just happens to be The Shape of Jazz to Come. Mighty big statement for saxophone player, The Shape of Jazz to Come. It was recorded on the Atlantic album, record label, LP and CD, and it was actually recorded in May 22nd of 1959. Ornette Coleman on alto sax. I'm going to save the best for last. Charlie Hayden on the bass, Billy Higgins on the drum, and Don Cherry on cornet. And it doesn't say pocket trumpet, but it's Don Cherry on cornet. And over this journey, I've really appreciated some Don Cherry. Free jazz player, trumpet player, brilliant dude. But I cannot believe you have the audacity in 1959 to say this is The Shape of Jazz to Come by Ornette Coleman. I cannot wait to put this in my ears. Probably go to bed with it tonight. What a banging fun album. It's probably not bedtime music.
Probably not.
But it
But-
could be.
But it is recognizable. It is very, very, very recognizable. I will highlight before, and please put it in your ear, but Charlie Hayden on bass, pay attention to him. He plays a lot with my man, Pat Metheny. So anything with Charlie Hayden on it, I'm just gonna, it's fun for me to see the progression of a musical artist, how he can play with Ornette in 59 and then move to the 90s and the 2000s with Pat Metheny in a totally different style of music. It's just simply amazing. Yeah.
I remember the day, Matt, when we would read through these articles and go, oh, we know what we're in for. Some accuse them of standing on the throat of jazz, while others, and then down below, I've heard nothing like this in modern jazz since Charlie Parker. You start reading some of these little notes in the magazine, you go, oh, yeah, I remember talking about this.
Uh-huh.
Where did it say? With controversy raging over
Yes.
this album.
Yep.
What are we in for? So,
Well, you have to put it in your ears and find
Charlie
out.
Hayden and Don Cherry with Ornette Coleman. That's
Yep.
what we're in for.
Dad, good luck. If you haven't heard of any of The Shape of Jazz to Come, and it is not root canal music.
Okay.
No, I got 5 miles left on this steep incline on this hill while I'm riding my bike. I need motivation to the top.
I'm pulling Matt on the top of Greasy Peak Hill on the back of a tandem bike.
Yeah. Yes. Which I had to do.
But I will say, you got to listen to it. As the unconnoisseurs of jazz have been, we've learned a lot because of being willing to listen to a different type of jazz, to listen to a different opinion even. So
All right, I forgot to mention. I just want to. I got my Downbeat magazine this week in the mail, and this was our reader, the reader poll issue. Now, I feel because this is my very first year that I got to even vote, being a Downbeat reader, I voted on all these artists, and I wanted just to highlight a few. The Jazz Hall of Fame artist, of course, went to Jack DeJohnette. I mean, passed away this year, of course. The Artist of the Year, Christian McBride. And if you haven't heard his new album, go check that out, please. The Large Ensemble of the Year goes to none other than my favorite, Maria Schneider. So, Large Ensemble of the Year, I'm just highlighting a few. The Album of the Year, and we covered this album last week, I believe, and What's New. The Branford Marsalis Belonging was the album of the year voted by the Downbeat readers.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. Best trumpet player, Ambrose Akinmusire. And it's so, Dad, I love your What's New pick every week because it introduces us to people like this so that I can say, I at least know the name. I have at least heard one of his albums. So now that just leads me to believe that I should just go listen to more Ambrose.
yep.
The best soprano sax, Branford Marsalis. Trombone, best trombone voted for Trombone Shorty. It's just so cool to read through the list, and again, makes me want to rabbit hole because besides the Large Ensemble of the Year being Maria Schneider, I know Maria Schneider. I've listened to the Christian McBride Big Band. He's number 2. Jazz at Lincoln Center, I've heard. Sun Ra Orchestra, WDR, Count Basie Orchestra. But then you get into names that I've never heard of, and those are the rabbit holes that I can't wait to fall down just because of a list like we used on our magazine.
Yeah.
It's cool because we've listened to some of the best readers' picks from Downbeat. We know who they are. That's what,
Yeah. We were sitting at Lily's sax lesson on Saturday, talking about Wynton being in town and where he was playing, who he was playing with, what rooms were closed, who was at the private show. And he said, and Wynton didn't even make it to the top of the trumpet Downbeat. He's third.
Yep.
And I said, well, who beat out Wynton? He said, well, Terrence Blanchard was 2, and I didn't even know who was on 1. So immediately I grabbed my phone and Googled it, and I'm like, Ambrose, huh? Honey from a Winter Stone. I'm like, no wonder he's at the top. And Joe's like, who? I said, Ambrose, you need to listen to this, brother.
Uh-huh. Now, I will say the readers got it wrong. The best male vocalist is Kurt Elling.
No, and Gregory Porter should have been number 1.
Well, I know. He was pretty far behind at number 2. So, but I voted for Gregory. I just wanted to highlight it because it's going to be a fun rabbit hole. Once I'm done Coltrane listening, I'm going to jump on and try and do as many on this list as I can.
Did I hear you say, what was that big band that you mentioned?
I've got to go. See, my dinner is here. I got to hang up with you punks.
Maria Schneider.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, the other one. The other.
Don't you say it. Don't you dare.
It wasn't the Duke Ellington. It wasn't Duke. It was let's see.
I'm gonna mute you.
It was 1 2
I'm gonna put a mute in it. Count Basie, baby.
Maybe a question would be, when did Downbeat magazine, when was it first published? Because I read about Downbeat when I'm reading the book by Gene Krupa.
Yeah.
It's referenced way back.
Mm-hmm. It's been around.
So it's
at least 50 years.
It's been around a long time.
Mm-hmm.
60 maybe. 60. Anyway, just a question.
Just saying, it was July of 1934.
Yep.
Downbeat magazine was published in July 1934. It was an 8-page publication that went on sale for 10 cents. Founded in Chicago. Adolf Lipschitz. Adolf Lipschultz was who started it.
You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig.
1934, Dad. What a great question.
Yeah.
81 years old.
Yeah. Big deal.
That is a big deal.
Thank you all.
Dad, I'm glad you made it through.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Me too.
I look forward to the possibility of next Monday as well. Yeah.
Yep.
So good. Very good.
Till next week. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Cheers, everybody.